All right. Welcome to this Say More section with Trisha Kelly. That was intense, man. It's interesting that there's people that exist that just carry an honesty and openness about them. You know, that's what I felt very, very deeply with her. They're very much, her and Tom were both very much, this is what we got. This is where we're at. This is where you're at. Love yourself for it. Forgive yourself for it. You know, there's not any kind of judgment or persecution attached to themselves, to other people. It doesn't feel that way. It feels very like, it's almost like they're rooting you on energetically as you're talking to them. Just like
I like that.
very uplifting.
I like that.
Just in the space, and she mentioned that at one point where the space is more powerful than your willpower, or the space is more powerful than will.
Well, your community, that's a Yogananda quote. The community is
Yes.
more stronger than your willpower.
Yes.
But you converted it to space, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's kind of when I look at it. It's the community creates a space. It creates
Yes.
it creates a connectedness and a support system. Even if you're not necessarily with a large group of people, like if just knowing that you have that to lean on for questions, for the chaos that ensues in your mind along the journey. I mean, that's huge, and that's what Ivy House has been for me. I mean, that's pulled me through so many different situations, on countless occasions for reasons that were not even obvious in the beginning, going into situations. So I think that it's a very powerful tool, and they seem to they seem to lean on that very much. And she leaned on, when you talked about the yoga studio and how powerful that was, and how great of an environment they had there when you met them, and yeah, it just makes you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, they hold space. It's a hard thing to explain to people that don't know what that means, to
Yeah.
hold space. But I experienced it with my teacher, Saul David Ray, tremendously. Teaches Vinyasa yoga, and he holds such a space when he walks in a room that when I do Vinyasa with him, it's like effortless, because it's like he's breathing with you, and it's like usually something that I would find very difficult on my own to do, like a heavy, strenuous, not strenuous, but like it's a vinyasa flow that's not easy. On my own is easy, but when I'm in class with him, it's like I'm floating.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Tom's yoga class used to be too. Well, his was like church. His was a little different. His was like preaching it the whole time. And I do remember Tom saying that. It's like, this is your community. She said that their soul of yoga was they create a spiritual community, which is what I've always said about Ivy House too. Because the gravity of your childhood and your belief systems and your conditioning can very easily drag you down. And I think that's what that statement is. It's like, your willpower is weak against the gravitational pull of conditioned habits, whether it's smoking or drinking or thinking negative thoughts or whatever. And so the more we can surround ourselves with like minds that think like us, that will keep us out of that gutter of our own thinking, that have healthy habits and eat healthy instead of junk food. It's like, you are who you surround yourself with. I mean, that sounds like a weak thing to say, but it is so true. You need support.
Yeah. Well, it's both. It's both a weakness if you're not, if you don't have an accountability in a group, in a community. If it's ego driven, that's going to drive you, and you're gonna slip and fall, and you're gonna create patterns of, very ego driven, programmed patterns. If you're an alcoholic and you hang out at a bar, you're probably going to fall back into negative patterns more easily than if you're in a organization, AA, or with a community that is, let's find healthy practices to create new programs, to create new healthy habits. And is based on intention and habit, or and accountability. I think is one of the strongest elements of a community in a space like that. If and that's what I think is so strong with in the interview. There's accountability. I feel looked at. I feel reflected on. I feel there's an awareness paying attention to me. But it's a welcoming. It's a welcoming awareness. It's saying, I can't wait to see what unfolds from you, kind of an experience. And it is an accountability, but it's not a judgmental accountability. And I think those two things kind of get conflated sometimes, where it's like, all right, accountability means if I do something and I fuck up, they're going to call me on it and they're going to bash me. And it's like, no, accountability is kind of like, at some point we started talking about, when you get that voice or that space or that lesson, or that there's a lesson or a guidance from a meditation or from a space of a practice, and you don't listen, nothing changes about that message. That message is still the same, and it'll come back to you. And it's like, no, you need to go here. Well, you don't listen again. That message doesn't become judgmental on you. That message or spirit or whatever that awareness is that is trying to guide you, it knows that if you don't follow that gravity, you will suffer on your own account. It doesn't need to impart any more suffering or struggle or judgment on you. And that's what I think is interesting. I guess the last 4 or 5, I mean, it's hard. They're kind of, there's been so many podcasts now, Corrine. I can't parse out each one, but there's this gravity, this awareness, and this consciousness that is being reflected by the guests at various times. And that was very present today. And I don't know if it just feels good to be listened to.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Because, our experience with most people, and it's not that they're, bad people. We have many, you and I both have many good people in our lives, but most people are thinking about their response rather than really listening to the person.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's, most of the people that come on this podcast are good listeners.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And I have a funny story that came to me, actually. So, I listen to people for a living now. That's what I do. I listen, spiritual I do spiritual life coaching, and even in the meditation, people have their stuff come up, and they talk, they tell me their experiences, and we listen. And that's sort of one of my, I want to say gifts, or, I think what I'm an empath, and I can really feel people. And because I have so many years on the path, and have sort of done many, like Trisha did Yogananda path mostly. That was her thing. I've kind of read all the books and studied with a lot of the gurus up. And so I can kind of cut down the fat when I work with people and say, okay, I listen to them and I think, okay, I think this book would be good for you, this. And so, so I feels like this is who I am now, right? But I have to tell you this story. Did I ever tell you the story of the retreat that I went on with Gary Zukov years ago? He's a famous spiritual author, and a friend of mine, Sarah McLean, who we're going to have on in January, was working with him. We met through Deepak, Sarah and I did. So Sarah's working with Gary Zukov, and she invites myself and a friend of mine to the Gary Zukov seminar. There's 40 attendees at Mount Shasta in California. And I think we're being invited to play music, because we had played music for Gary at this church he spoke at. We sang a few songs, and they said, come and do the retreat. And I thought it was to sing. Well, I guess it was apparently to participate, which is great. Usually the retreats I used to sing at, I used to participate in too. But this was like an opening circle of 40 people that started at 2:00 in the afternoon. And usually in an opening circle, you say, just briefly introduce yourself and say why you're here, and just take, a couple minutes, because there's a lot of people to get through. Well, they start off by saying, speak as long as you want. Tell us your story. Tell us your story. And of course, when you go on a spiritual retreat, usually there's some pain that brought you there, right?
I
So
see
we
what.
continue for 4 or 5 hours in this circle listening to everybody's shit.
Yeah.
And I wanted to cry. So in the middle of the night, I woke up, major stomach pains. I'm staying in a little cabin. There's no indoor toilet. I have to go to an outhouse, and I have everything coming out both ends. It's coming out both ends in this outhouse. So I missed the next 3 days of the retreat. I can't attend again. So Gary's partner, Linda, comes out day 2. I was going to get an ambulance at some point, but it's like 2 hours from anywhere.
Yeah.
She comes out, they find me some, salts, whatever to drink and get my fluids back in me. And she comes in and she goes, "You know why this has happened, right?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh. I don't like listening to anybody's shit, and I don't like telling people about my own shit." And then 20 years later,
That's what you do.
that's what I do.
Well, and that's I when you started into the circle, and I for some reason I saw that going there, and it's hilarious. If you open a space for people to talk about their experience, and if you are seeking for any kind of spiritual guidance or whatever, they're gonna say it. That
They want to tell you all. They want to say everything.
That reminds me of the last conversation you and I had during the yoga training, where I just I just fell apart at the end and had this crazy experience, and then the closing meditation. I was that guy. I was for like an hour and 15 minutes just bawling my eyes. I have no idea how long I talked, and I just imagine the very, very supportive, nurturing, lovely women that I took the yoga training teacher training with. They listened for as long as I apparently needed. And, at one point I felt a little sorry, but then I was like, you know what, this is actually what I need. And, fortunately it's just one person.
Well, that's the thing. It's one person. It's an experience. We'd all been together for, 4 or 5 days, and there was 10 of us or 11 of us,
Yeah.
so that's a little, and we knew each other.
Yes.
So that was appropriate. And I'm not saying they were in the wrong. I'm telling the story I fully take responsibility for. I just wasn't ready at that point energetically. I didn't understand my empath abilities and all that, and I just took it all in, right? And just couldn't handle it.
Well, that's the key thing right there is, there's a listening and there's a holding space, and then there's a dysfunctional empath reaction, which is, oh, there's 40 people that want to give me their problems. I better take it all. That's we've discussed that many times, and I think we even talked about that at one point. The dysfunction of something, it kind of manifests almost from the same mechanism as a healthy aspect of something. Empathy is a good thing when it's balanced. When it's dysfunctional, it's not good. It becomes this self-indulgent quest to try to take everybody's pain from them, very, very naively, right? Like, well, if I can just stop their suffering, then I can make everything better. That I lived my life that way for quite a long time, and it ultimately it's there's always new problems. You cannot consume enough of people's problems to make a dent in anything, because ultimately I think that the self-reflection process, shows you that you are here to manage your experience, manage your suffering, manage your walk through life, through ascendance. And that was one thing that I really appreciated Trisha mentioned was, don't compare yourself to anybody else's spiritual journey. And I know that's kind of that's somewhat of a I don't want to say kindergarten thing, but we're great. It's like, don't compare yourself. You're unique. It's like, you are unique, but you're not just unique. You are in a different time, in a different space, at a different place for you yourself that you committed to, and it's not important how you compare yourself to other people. It will not serve you at all. It will help you devolve really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, my saying that I tell people is you know, if you compare yourself to anybody, you're going to lose 50% of the time and win 50% of the time. You know, it's heading down a hole that is never a good thing. And
Yeah.
you know, and it is just a function of the ego, because the ego wants to measure. And it's just a good thing not to do in general, is look at, you know, I mean, it's, you know, look at your neighbors and see what they have. It's like, and I love that saying. My favorite saying is that when you point your finger at somebody else, you've got three fingers pointing back at you. It's like, because the thing is that when you compare yourself or concern yourself with others, it's actually easier because it's taking the responsibility off of you and what's going on inside of you. And
Yes.
it's more challenging to do the self-inquiry journey, to take responsibility and to look inside. And that's like sort of coaching 101.
Yeah.
You know, and what I love about meditation is that a lot of this stuff that we talk about happens automatically once you start meditating.
Yes.
Automatically, once you start a meditation practice, you just stop comparing yourself to others. You don't have to be told not to do it. You just are not interested anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you do compare yourself, you're making a practice of looking for lack within yourself. Really,
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, well, that person has this that I don't have. Well, you're focused on what you don't have, but when you're in that meditation space and you're in that relationship with the meditation, with the godliness, with the universe, with spirit, there is abundance. There is infinite abundance in that meditative space. And the more you carry that with you, the less you carry the smallness of, well, but right now I don't have 60-inch TV. I was like, okay, well, what is it? 60-inch TV, you know, anything of value, you know, juxtaposed against the backdrop of infinite space and godly, you know, it's no, not even close. But you know, we do that. We have habits like that. And this is funny that I had an experience of jealousy today, just a feeling of jealousy, and I had two reactions. Well, I had the initial reaction was like, I recognized that I was like, oh, I'm feeling jealous right now. And it was about it was about a Grammy, you know, Grammy, and winning a Grammy is a big thing in, you know, the audio industry, or most, you know, and I felt, well, I don't have a Grammy. You know, that's what I felt, you know, and instead of, and my initial was like, oh, don't feel jealous. Don't be jealous. And I was like, wait a minute, but I am. Let me look at this. Let me shine a light on this and reflect. Why do I feel jealous about something that, if I even really looked at it, what I value is beyond this certificate of social popularity? You know, so immediately when I looked at that jealousy, it's like, why am I jealous, and why do I put importance on things that ultimately don't serve me and has no weight or bearing on the whole of what I have when I'm in meditation, which is, there is nothing to have because you have access to everything. You know, you have access to that universal allness, and so it was interesting, and you know, go ahead.
And no, I was going to say another step to that is, you know, because you've done a lot of work, and so you inquired within right away, like, why, you know, not just say, well, I'm not supposed to feel that way, but well, why do I feel that way? That's the way to heal it. Shine the light of consciousness on it. But it's also what I actually came up with this a couple of weeks ago when I was doing a coaching call, and I was like, okay, so find something in your room. So it was when you're looking straight at the camera, right? So if you're listening to the podcast or you're watching, like, find something in your room to look at. But notice that as you look at that something straight ahead, your peripheral vision can see everything to the right and everything. Well, not everything, but you can see a lot of stuff on the right and left. But you decide to focus on whatever it is you're focusing on, right? And so that's how our thoughts are, and how jealousy and fear and anger and everything is. It's like, it's like they're kind of all, we have, whatever they say, 65 to 75, 85,000 thoughts in a day. And so we don't have control over those thoughts in the day or either in meditation. But what we do have control over is where we decide to put our attention, what we decide to believe in.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so the difference between somebody that hasn't done the work is they believe the jealousy, and then they'll go into it and they will live there.
Yes, correct. And yes, instead of bringing the periphery, the awareness, that the biggest space, and shine a light on that, and say, is this something I even want to believe, have, possess, live in? And almost certainly no, right? I mean, the answer is no. Of course, I don't want to be a jealous person. So then you say, cool, and let this pass, and let it pass. But I think it's interesting because it's a very slippery slope, because for a second I did focus on that. I said, well, let's look at this, but it was with curiosity. It
That's
was
the key.
it was it was something to explore, not something I identified with. And that actually felt really good for me today. I kind of had a little chip on my shoulder about it. I was like, I don't identify with jealousy, even when it comes up. I kind of had that experience, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pride, I guess, but it was that's how that process is triumphed, is why I am experiencing jealousy. I didn't say I'm jealous. I'm feeling this jealousy. The same thing with a thought. It's I had this thought come into view. I didn't say this is my thought, and that's the difference in that separation and not attachment. Is these thoughts are, like you said, very uncontrollable. They just almost certainly, they're going to keep running their course, and they're going to do their best. They're going to fight for that focal position, and the practice that meditation gives you is to detach yourself from that, and to take those thoughts for what they are. They are just thoughts. And you have that experience of, cool, fun thought, jealousy. Oh, fun thought, I don't have enough money. That's a fun thought. I'm sure people are having that thought right now, but it's like, that's not my truth. That's not real. That's not my belief. That's not, accurate. And once you say that, the thought almost immediately goes away. And then I started to have these feelings of, then I was proud for this person that I had some jealousy towards. I was like, well, good for that person. I hope they're experiencing good things from that. I hope they're growing. I hope they're having peace from this, or I hope they feel proud of themselves. I hope they're working hard. And then I started to really have gratitude for that person's experience instead of a sense of lack. So it was a powerful moment today to have that. And this conversation that we just had really kind of reflected and embodied the energy and the spirit of non-judgment, to have in those experiences.
I love that.
It's weird. It's almost uncanny. It's strange.
Yeah, when it spontaneously starts to happen, and it seems spontaneous, and it is spontaneous, but it's because of all the work that you've done. It's because of the conversations. It's because of the meditation. You're becoming more mindful.
Yes.
And you're becoming more, less identified with your thinking and more identified with the present moment. I mean, it might be a fact that somebody doesn't have money right now, a lot of money right now, but you don't have to go into the story about that. Well, the fear of the future and what am I going to do? And it's like, okay, what can I do in this moment about the money that I don't have? And you
Right.
just focus on this moment about, coming up with something creative. My niece, I was on the phone with my niece, and she's, 23, almost 23, and riding horses up in Toronto. She's pursuing a dream of doing some championship, like Olympic type riding. And so she went all the way from Alberta to Toronto with 2 horses and staying in an apartment, away from home for the first time, because she did college, while she was living at home. And it's costing her a lot of money to board 2 horses and take these championship lessons.
Yeah.
Actually, she said it was $8,000 a month. You know, she's
Woo!
23 and she's saved a shitload of money, and she's spending all her own money on it. She's saved her money like crazy since she's a good saver, but she can only do it for a certain amount of time. So she's coming up with all these creative ways to make money so she can stay, because she wants to stay. It's
Yes.
really important to her. And it's like, I tell people that, like, I've never been like, as far as maybe a person who has a ton of money in the bank and owns a house. Like, I've never had a lot of money, but I've always done whatever I want to do, and I've always had enough money to travel and to buy cars and live and live a very nice life, have nice clothes, whatever. Just because I don't, I always come up with creative solutions in order to make money. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
And I loved hearing my niece. She was actually coming up with like a business plan to give her dad to do some marketing for him. She did a little bit of marketing for him in the summertime, and she's coming up with a business plan. And she's also has a huge wit. Like, she's super smart and super funny. I send her photos and I say, "Can you caption this?" And she goes, "Yeah, other people do that too." And I'm like, "Girl, you get paid for that. You get paid to caption, like, do some copy." Anyways, there are creative solutions to things. So instead of allowing your mind to go in the rabbit hole of jealousy and everything you don't have, and then, oh, maybe I wasted the past 10 years, and what did this person do? Like, at the big story, it's like, okay, I'm curious about it. This is interesting. I'm
Yeah.
acknowledging the feeling. Do I even want that? And then if I do want that, maybe what can I do, the steps to do? Or maybe I don't even want that. Like, it's like, really, and this is what it means to know yourself.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And be patient and forgiving with yourself as you learn about yourself. Because that has been a big problem for me, is not forgiving myself and being very hard on myself. Take the example of jealousy. In the past, I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, you know better than that. You know better than to be jealous. It's like, oh, now I'm going to spend a whole day or week, worried about being jealous. Same thing like your niece. She knows the limitations of her savings, and she can look at that and say she could spend all week worrying about what happens at the end of next month when it runs out, or you could focus on steps to perpetuate something that you love, and having gratitude, and having humbleness, and knowing that this is my passion. I'm not attached to this, but I love this. I'm feeling a lot of joy from this. I get to list of many things that you get to experience from this, and bring with to other people, and how you can share that experience with other people in a positive way, and then move forward with steps to perpetuate that, instead of being afraid of how that's going to end. And and again, like you said, that's the process of knowing yourself and learning about yourself. And one of the key ingredients, and this has come up a few times, is forgiving other people, not judging other people's, and forgiving yourself and not judging yourself, because you're learning your truth. And it's very unique, and it's very different, and it's probably extremely contrast to your programming. That's the other thing, is like, the programming is deep. It's very difficult. It's hard to break away from it. It takes many years in a lot of cases to break through that. But you're constantly at odds with that programming, and you're trying to figure out who you are outside of that programming. That takes a long time. So have fun with it. Be curious about it. Have that forgiveness and that love and that joy, that both Trisha and Tom carry with them. Love that about yourself. Love that you don't know. Be patient with that you don't know, and then go have fun with it and laugh. That's how I think we make these very powerful incremental steps forward.
Yeah. Lighten up.
Lighten up.
Don't take it all so seriously. And then, because creativity happens out of space. Edison invented electricity when he was flying a kite, not when he was at the drawing table.
Yes.
It's like creativity and living life in a creative way is like, relax and have fun. And
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good podcast, Sean.
Absolutely. That hit me. I'm going to listen over that one and, kind of revel in some of those nuggets of very powerful wisdom.
Mm-hmm. One more. We only have one more to record before the end of the year.
Oh, wow. That's right. That's coming up. I have mixed feelings about that. I feel like 2020 needs to be over big time, but I'm also very thankful for 2020. I think it shed a lot of light on a lot of, craziness and chaos and things that we haven't really moved past in life. So it's been a bittersweet year, I suppose.
Yeah.
But cheers to moving forward. Cheers to lovely ladies like you and Trisha and, all the rest that are, patient and very, very patient as we bring some of these, balancing energies into our life and society and culture.
Absolutely. And thank you for being the balanced male, so insightful and so compassionate. People love you. That's why I want to do the podcast with you. I love you.
I love you too. I love all y'all. I love everybody that's come on, and I love everybody that's listening. So
it's a big love fest.
Big love.
Big love. Okay. Bye-bye.